Please be seated. Once I took a 6-month sabbatical from my medical practice at Children's Hospital, planning an international meeting for my specialty. The meeting went well, but few people knew about the many behind-the-scenes events that made it happen. The conference was in Colorado Springs in early May. As the meeting began, I looked in disbelief out a window and saw a heavy snowfall on the spring tulips. Quickly, overnight, we called an audible and changed the planned golf and tennis events to winter sports. We taped the speakers after their sessions, as this was the first year of our specialties recertification. I casually asked another pediatric radiologist, Marilyn Goski, to look in on the taping. Marilyn ended up never attending the meeting, spending time with one speaker who was never satisfied with his recording, who redid his talk 5 times. Perhaps the most innovative behind-the-scenes event was the spontaneous impromptu marriage of 2 pediatric radiologists who lived continents apart. Our Yes We Can Do It meeting planner set up a ceremony in less than 24 hours. That wedding stands as the only nuptial event at this annual conference to date. John's telling of the feeding of the 5,000 also lets us in at a rare, behind-the-scenes look at how miracles take place. A large crowd follows Jesus as he heals the sick. Jesus goes up a mountain and sits down with his disciples. But unlike in the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Jesus, not the disciples, initiates a discussion about how to feed the now hungry multitude. Philip is practical and realistic, does the math, and sees no possible plan. Andrew, resourceful and observant, reports that a boy offers 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. However, Andrew, known for bringing people to Jesus, like this boy, like his brother Peter, and later some Greeks, minimizes the possibility that this plan might work. Jesus then asks the disciples to have the crowd sit in a grassy area. He takes the barley loaves, the bread of the poor, and the fish, and offers thanksgiving. And then Jesus distributes the food. In the Synoptic Gospels, the disciples hand out the food. John reiterates that Jesus is always the giver, even if the gift is mediated through us. After the people are satisfied, Jesus asks the disciples to gather the fragments so nothing will be lost. They fill 12 baskets. The people are so astonished that they want to make Jesus king, but he withdraws up the mountain by himself. He knows well that being king of the Jewish people is not his calling. He comes to teach us about a different kingdom. So much of this miracle, the movement of the Spirit, happens behind the scenes in this story and in our everyday lives. We witness Jesus' resourcefulness bursting open our notions of limits and possibilities in our lives, our relationships, possibilities we miss because of our short-sightedness. Here is a story of resourcefulness and generosity using what we have, our small gift, that can have a significant impact. It's about having faith that God's power is operational and overabundant. Andrew and Philip especially remind us of our times when we minimize how God works in our lives. Sometimes our gifts are ready to be used, but we wait until we might be even better prepared. The enemy of good is perfection. That desire for perfection turns us into a miserable, isolating, never-ending addiction. The story also reminds us how Jesus cares for our physical needs as much as our spiritual concerns. Jesus cares for the whole body. This is why the Benedictine rule of life is so vital for us to consider. Time for prayer, time for study, eating, sleeping, working, and recreation. Jesus doesn't meet the minimum requirements for feeding the 5,000. He lavishes food on them until they're satisfied, and then gathers the leftovers to take to those not there. There shall be no waste. Jesus does not want anyone to be left out. This story is not just about abundance, but an overwhelming cup full running over. Do you remember when Jesus asked St. Mark's, "How will you feed the hungry crowd?" In our last capital campaign, money was left over. The Spirit moves the people of St. Mark's to remember the miracle of that abundance. They put that money into an outreach account, with part going to outreach and the other to a mustard seed startup grant for new outreach projects. We all know this story. Here comes another behind-the-scenes miracle. About that time in 2016, another church on Mississippi cannot sustain its food pantry and ask if St. Mark's can take it over. There are discussions similar to Philip's that St. Mark's might not take in enough money to support it, and Andrew's that the proposed food pantry needs might exceed their allotted amount. Established ministries will have to share space. How will people needing food impact the day school? But again, somehow there is another miracle. One person speaks up saying, St. Mark's needs this ministry. I hope we can find a way to work together to say yes. The whole direction changes. The Holy Spirit takes over and turns a food pantry serving 500 people and 90 families monthly into a large-scale weekly food ministry to our neighborhood that this May serves 3,000 people and 650 families, with a continued yearly increase in people served, going from 500 to 3,000 people, 90 families to 650 families. In the meantime, another behind-the-scenes miracle. Longtime members of St. Mark's, Gladys Beal, a VA operating nurse, and her husband leave money in their will to renovate the youth area and enlarge the food pantry to its present state. Need and abundance that keeps on growing. Thank you so much to so many of you who have made the core value of St. Mark's identity, a place of miracles and abundance. Lastly, in the feeding story, Jesus embraces a child's extravagant generosity, reminiscent of a child offering to help their parents buy a new house by offering up their piggy bank. This takes us back to another behind-the-scenes story at our Colorado Springs meeting. We engaged the nearby Air Force Academy chorus to sing at our banquet. But overnight, they go on maneuvers. Our meeting planner again responds, "We can make this work," and books a local children's chorus. I'm distressed, thinking this is going to be amateur night. But they are amazing, professional voices, leaving the audience in tears. As the children conclude the program, they go to each pediatrics physician, sing directly to them, and give a gentle hug and a thank you. The children bring to each person that source of abundant love we so often learn from our young. Today's final adventure with the disciples finds them in a storm in the Sea of Galilee. Jesus walks on water toward them, and they're terrified, and they initially cannot recognize him. Jesus speaks one of his favorite lines, "It is I, do not be afraid." And the boat reaches land where they were going. This is how Jesus works when we're in difficult situations. He walks in behind the scenes. Often we do not recognize his presence. And finally, when we do, we come to a safe harbor. When we lose our capacity to wonder, we become skeptical about the extraordinary and miss the extraordinary within the ordinary. The miracle in this last story is that Jesus' presence in ordinary, fearful people can calm their anxieties and cause them to walk where they feared to walk before. I believe Christ was present in that person at St. Mark's. You know who you are. Who finally speaks up and says, St. Mark's needs this ministry. I hope we can find a way to say yes. May each of us say our prayers and stay connected to the Christ, the Holy Spirit within us. May we be that person at St. Mark's who has experienced abundance and love and who can speak truth at the right moment, often behind the scenes, and say, St. Mark's needs this ministry. I hope we can find a way to reach out of ourselves and support the needs of our community around us and in the world.